Does the theory of evolution really offer plausible answers to questions like, how did the universe come into existence? What happened to form the stars? How did life come about on Earth? How did humans come into existence? What process formed the fossil record? What is the origin of space and time and matter? On a more practical level, one might ask, how did we get a 7-day work week? Why do we wear clothes? Why is there evil in the world? Why do we die? Why are there so many races, cultures, and languages? Is the Big Bang Theory credible? If so, then where did the original particle of matter come from? And where did the energy come from to cause it to explode? And where did the space come from into which it expanded? Is time eternal? Is space eternal? Is matter eternal? Is energy eternal? And did dinosaurs and man actually live side by side, or did man follow dinosaurs by approximately 100 million years? And if they did live side by side, what does that do to the theory of evolution? Does the Bible offer more plausible answers to these questions than does the theory of evolution? Can it be shown that creation is thousands, not billions of years old? The answers to these questions have eternal ramifications, so we'll be seeking some answers tonight on our show. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Answers for a Thirsty World. I'm Steve Van Horn. The debate between proponents of a biblical model of creation and those holding to the theory of evolution has been intense for at least 85 years, dating back to the Scopes monkey trial in 1925. More and more, the theory of evolution is being accepted as fact, and the biblical model of creation is being rejected. Even many Christian groups are forsaking a literal interpretation of Genesis 1 in the Bible, which states that God created everything in 6 literal days, for a creation story that suggests that God used an evolutionary process to create everything over a period of millions or even billions of years. So who's right? Which of these approaches provide the most reasonable set of answers? Well, helping us to sort through all of this tonight is pastor and archaeologist Dr. Dennis Swift. Hello, Dennis. Welcome back to the program. It's been a while. Yes. We're glad to have you back. So in a few minutes, we are going to be putting a phone number on the screen, and when we do that, that will be your invitation to call the program with your questions. This is a hot topic. I'm sure you have many questions, and we'd be happy to try to deal with them, or I say we. Dr. Dennis will do his best. He's the expert here, but together we'll try to answer your questions. So in a few minutes, that phone number will be on the screen, and it will be your invitation to call. Dennis, as we start, you're a pastor and an archaeologist. I was going to ask you which came first, the chicken or the egg, but I'll ask you which came first, being a pastor or an archaeologist.
Well, I was pastoring first, but I've always had an interest in archaeology and studied Indian archaeology at Western New Mexico University and the University of New Mexico, and had a background in anthropology and some science before I became a pastor.
So your archaeological training came before your theology training? Just trying to put together.
Yeah, kind of a combination of both at the same time.
I was going to ask the question how you got involved in Christian Science, but creation science, not Christian Science. Sorry about that. Creation science. It's just a hobby that you had, or something from early in life, or when did it develop?
Well, I grew up in New Mexico. I like to call it looks like 200,000 square miles of kitty litter. It also is a very spectacular state with majestic mountains and everything. But during my educational odyssey, after I got saved, I was certainly a theistic evolutionist. But one time I was with my father at Chaco Canyon, which is an Anasazi Indian ruin, from about 1100 AD. And as we were leaving the complex, I saw a book by Fran Barnes called about Indian paleontology. And there was a little section in the back of these unexplained anomalies that some of the rock art, the petroglyphs are rock art carvings, and they had some dinosaurs on it and mammoths that were supposed to be extinct hundreds of thousands of years ago, and dinosaurs 65 million years ago. Well, I kept that book until I heard a creationist, Dr. Don Chittick, and when he mentioned these things, I went searching for them, and it proved to be correct that these people had seen living, breathing dinosaurs. So that's how I got involved.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that a little bit more in just a minute. How much time now do you devote to archaeology, the research that you do to keep current on this whole debate?
Well, I probably end up spending one day a week in one way or another in this endeavor, and educational information associated with dinosaurs and man and evolution, creation. And so consequently, we also have a very large conference. It's been going for 25 years on this subject. And I was just down in Los Angeles yesterday with some movie stars. And, the gospel reaches all kinds of places. And about this subject, something they want to film about creationism.
How many trips a year do you take, and where do you go?
Well, I usually take maybe about 3 trips a year. I've been to Peru many, many times. And that's a paleontological paradise. There's more stuff down there that refutes evolution than any place else on the planet. And then I've been to Egypt and Cambodia and Turkmenistan. But about 5 weeks out of the year, 5-6 weeks, I end up traveling different places.
Now, you've written a book, and just want to let everybody see what this is. Secrets of the Inca Stones and the Nazca, is that
Nazca Lines.
And why did you write this book?
Well, the Inca stones are a collection of about 11,000 stones from tombs from various Indian groups in South America, dating from about 500 BC to 1500 AD approximately. And they drew dinosaurs on the stones that they put in the tombs. And then the Nazca lines are one of archaeology's most baffling enigmas. These are drawings done by the Nazca Indians in the driest place on the planet in the Atacama Desert. In fact, there's almost no measurable moisture. I have friends down there that have never seen rain or snow except on TV. So in this place, they carved on the desert these giant geoglyphs. And astonishingly, 3 of those geoglyphs, these giant carvings, are of dinosaurs.
Now,
so they had to see the dinosaurs to carve them.
That was my question, and I want you to say that again. Why is it significant that these stones and these carvings are of dinosaurs? Say it again. Why? I don't want our viewers to miss that.
According to the evolutionists themselves, if dinosaurs and man lived together, then evolution would be refuted, that the timeline would topple, and that creationism would be true and the Bible would be correct. In fact, if dinosaurs and man lived together, evolution would be kaput, finished, a zero with the hubcaps kicked off. They know that is a serious blow and a fatal blow to evolutionism. And so they have this neat linear timeline that keeps getting disproved, but it shows that special creation would be the correct model.
I want to come back to that. We're going to save time towards the end of the program to really delve into this particular topic, because I know it's near and dear to your heart. But let's discuss, at least briefly, some of the other issues that come up in this debate. And we'll just go right to the heart of the matter. One of the major theories that we hear now is called the Big Bang Theory, where there was some original particle, and I think most would say a very tiny particle, and all of a sudden something did something to it. It exploded. Out of that came the universe, and it's been expanding ever since. The evolutionist would claim that the universe is expanding, which proves that it started with a big bang and it's been expanding ever since. How would a creationist respond to that?
Well, several ways you would respond to that. They believe that all the matter in the universe was compacted to the size of about a dot at the end of a sentence. That's one big trash compactor. It defies all known laws of science that you could put all that matter in a small space. Also, where did gravity come from then? And secondly, there is the law of conservative angular momentum. And this is a proven law that if there was an explosion, how can you have some planets going in the other direction, like Venus and Neptune? See, and also explosions do not cause order, they cause disorder. For instance, if I was going to build a house and I went out here and I bought lumber and cement and nails and windows and all the hardware to the thing and doors, and then I put it out in a pile and I said, Steve, come over, I got some dynamite, and I light the dynamite and it explodes, and that's how I build a house, and everything comes down in order. There's the windows, the doors, and everything. Explosions do not cause order, they cause disorder. The second thing is the second law of thermodynamics that has never been disproven, demonstrates that you cannot create or destroy matter. And only God could have done that in a special way. And we know from everything we see about the universe that has handiwork, it is designed. It's called a universe or a multiverse. In other words, it's multiple order. It's highly designed, highly intricate. In fact, the way things move at these places, if they were only a quarter of a mile off some of the places, or less than that, 200 yards, they would collide and everything would start to topple in. The other thing is we do not know about the edges of the universe. We cannot tell if this thing is truly expanding. It may be more like a little bit like inside the way God designed it, a little bit like a waterbed. You see a little bit of movement, or because there has to be some elasticity and give on the outer regions. But no way have we proven that it is expanding.
A couple of things there that come to my mind. First of all, second law of thermodynamics, that initial particle, somebody's going to, for that theory to hold up, somebody's going to have to explain where that particle came from.
Right.
According to the second law of thermodynamics. Not only that...
And we're going to send you to the psych ward if you believe everything came from something that small.
And then also the thought of the energy that caused it to explode, where did that come from?
Right.
You know, where did this, and I mentioned this in the opening, where did the space come from that allowed this to expand into it?
And you need gravity before that.
And so I think and then you were talking about the outer boundaries of creation, the universe, the galaxy, whatever you want to talk about. And this is something we want to talk about throughout the program, is the assumptions. There are a lot of assumptions that go into the theory of evolution. They have to assume a lot of these things.
And it takes more miracles to believe in that than it does that God created it. In fact, all the things we know about the laws of science, so much of it is the opposite. It's impossible. And yet they'll go right ahead and say, well, it violates all the known laws, we'll go ahead and do it anyway. I know somebody, I'll have to leave him compassionately anonymous. He doesn't like me to mention his name on TV, but he is the top in his field in one area of nuclear physics. And he says we live in an age of ignorance. It's called science. In fact, so many of these things are outdated and outmoded, but we hang on to them because we don't have any other explanation. And he's not a believer, but these things take more belief than the other.
Another topic that I'd like to talk about briefly, and why don't we go ahead and put the phone number on the screen? And when you see that phone number there, that'll be your invitation to call the program if you have questions about anything in the evolution creation debate. So there's the number, and we invite you to call. And as always, we ask that you would be serious with your questions. Any serious comment or question, we're happy to entertain. So that's your invitation. Another issue that I want to talk about for a few minutes is the fossil record, and in particular radioisotope dating and some of these things where they look at this fossil and they say, well, just according to our measurements, our scientific measurements, this is 40 million years old. Talk a little bit about these dating methods.
Well, Oxford University did a study, and there's approximately 96 different dating methods, and about 85 of them support a young Earth. We only hear about the ones that supposedly support an old Earth. But radiocarbon-14 dating, I happen to have met the guy who was the co-founder with Walter Libby. If you take 33 objects, this was done. If I take 33 pieces of this vase that's about 2,000 years old, and I send it to 33 laboratories, I'll get 33 different dates. There's only 2 laboratories in the world that they will do a blind test. You send the object in and they'll just do a blind test and give you a date. What you have to do is give them the assumptions that you believe how old it is. And they usually will throw out all the dates and get the date that's closest to what you believe the object is. In fact, we have sent in, and this is done by people that are not creationists, they're scientists in their field. For instance, one is a Mayan ruin. They sent in some wood from a Mayan ruin, and they knew when the Mayan ruin was built. They have the evidence and the Mayan civilization and everything, and yet it gave a wrong date. Now, if you give a wrong date for a known object, how can you get a right date for an unknown time of the object? They have done studies, for instance, there's these snails in Antelope Springs, Nevada, where they're alive. They're in a spring. And they went down there and carbon-14 dated them. They gave them a date of 20,000 to 30,000 years old.
Now, is this documented
information?
Oh, it's
documented. This is in scientific literature.
Yeah.
The scientific magazines, and this is normal, like Nature and others. A prestigious British journal did a study on carbon-14 dating. We know this is a fact. And there was some mollusk off the coast of Oregon that dated it all the way from a few thousand to 1 million years old, and they were alive. We have seal skins that from freshly killed seals from Alaska, and they were dated thousands of years apart and hundreds of years apart. We have trees that were planted in this century that date older than trees from 100 or 200 years ago. So what you have is a lot of assumptions about carbon-14 dating. We don't know. You have to know how much radioactivity carbon was in at the start, and we don't know what the start was, how much carbon was in the atmosphere and everything else. Secondly, you have to know at the rate something will absorb carbon-14. In many places, we do not know that at all. Carbon-14 dating has been proved unreliable over and over again. Now, you can get some closeness over a 2,000 or 3,000 year period, maybe a maximum of 5,000 years, but you cannot get accuracy. And in fact, there have been one of the leaders in radiocarbon-14 dating called it just alchemy, just magic trying to do something. I'll give you another example. Mount St. Helens up here exploded in 1980, all right? Mm-hmm. Inside, a dome started forming in 1980, all right? Mm-hmm. And then it formed till 1989. Now, they did tests. They went up there, did potassium, argon, plutonium, rubidium, strontium. They did different dating methods. Now, how old do you think they got from the different dating methods? They got everything from 500,000 years old at that, and we witnessed it in our lifetime, 500,000 years old to 4.2 billion years old, right? And beyond that, maybe they're counting in dog years, I don't know. But we can see that heat and other pressures and stuff like that affect the clock too. So again, you don't hear about the other dating methods, okay? For instance, helium in the atmosphere. Helium in the atmosphere. If the Earth's atmosphere was 10,000 years old, even if it was 8,000 years old, we'd all be in here talking like Donald Duck or Mickey Mouse. We know the amount escaping into the atmosphere. So that itself proves the date for a young Earth. Again, over 80 of the dating methods support an Earth from a few thousand to 3 million years old. We only hear of the others that give a long dating. So these are some of the problems.
Something that you mentioned in the middle of that, towards the beginning of your statement there, I heard the word assumption again, because you're talking about these people taking in, they say, we think this is about a certain age, and so those who are testing it try to fit it into that. Right. Talking about assumptions, I want to show a statement that I found. I did a little bit of research on my own. Let's bring this up on the screen. I want to go through this. Let people see. I got this off of an evolution website. Observation, it says here, is only for a lifetime. That's what you're talking about. And so out of a lifetime, we're talking about maybe a scientist observing, I'm just going to throw out 50 years out of his lifetime trying to date something that's 1 billion years old. But here's what it says. The rest is presumed. based on certain assumptions, it is impossible to prove that the theory of evolution is absolutely true. The theory maintains that plant evolution, animal evolution, and the major geological changes to the Earth unfolded over billions of years, and it continues. Thus, the full theory cannot be demonstrated in a laboratory, and that's the point we're making. Processes like the rise of mountains and erosion are simply too slow to be observed during one person's lifetime. Elements of the theory, for instance, species evolution of fruit flies in the laboratory and of tilapia fish in East Africa lakes, have been observed, okay, but nobody was on hand to observe what the world and its life forms looked like hundreds of millions of years ago. And that's exactly what you're talking about. There's a lot of assumptions. Right. And I brought this little 3-minute timer. And here's what we're talking about. You know, here's this timer. And if we turn this over, and let's just say that this is a 10 billion year timer. And there is something going on. There's this radioisotope dating. There's the half-life and the decaying and all that kind of stuff. And out of billions of years that the evolutionist says things have been around, you're observing this for a nanosecond. And yet trying to come to conclusions of the entire thing based on an observation of a nanosecond. What we don't know is whether there was sand in the bottom of this to start with. We don't know if the sand falling through this glass has always been the same speed. And we don't know if something happened in the middle to kind of do this and to shake up the whole thing. So there's a lot of assumptions that go into this whole dating method, right?
Yeah, there's so many assumptions in all of these things that they are inaccurate. I can tell you carbon-14 can help us a little bit within a few hundred or a few thousand years, but there again, we are doing guesswork. We don't know how much carbon-14 was in the atmosphere to begin with. We don't know where the clock started, and you're assuming that it stays at a constant rate. Mm-hmm. I was involved in the Acambaro dinosaur figurines, and a major thing in Mexico, and even the president of Mexico got involved, and they built a museum in Acambaro, Mexico, these different figurines, and some of them are ceramic dinosaur figurines. Now, when we sent the stuff to be dated at various laboratories, okay, what they came back with, when they came back with dates of, 600 years old, 1,500 years old, stuff like that, that showed that these dinosaurs would have to live recently, and other artifacts that show civilization and everything. When that came back, then they say, oh, well, that can't be. The datings, there's anomalies in the soil. There's problems with the dating method. All these difficulties, see. When it doesn't support their case, they'll always come back and say, well, we've got some kind of contamination, or there's problems, or there's difficulties. Mm-hmm. Well, we just know that we don't have any